In this video, we'll explore the incredible power of inner strength and resilience, the kind that doesn't come from physical might or external achievements, but from deep within. Life often brings us to the brink, testing our limits and pushing us to face our fears, doubts, and vulnerabilities. But it's in these moments of struggle that we discover a strength we never knew existed. This isn't about being invulnerable, it's about embracing our weaknesses, surrendering to something greater than ourselves, and finding courage in the most unexpected places. As we journey through life's trials, we'll learn that true strength is not only about survival but about transformation and becoming the person we were always meant to be. Watch to discover how to tap into the power of grace, faith, and surrender, and find the unshakable strength within you that will carry you through anything life throws your way. Don't miss out on the life-changing lessons that await. Before we start, I'd appreciate your support. If you like the video, please subscribe and hit the bell to stay updated on future lessons from God. In the quiet, seemingly empty moments of solitude, it's easy to succumb to the painful temptation to believe that you have been abandoned, forgotten, or left to fend for yourself. The silence, the stillness, can make you feel as though the world has moved on without you. Yet, in these very moments, something far more profound is unfolding. You are not being neglected. You are being meticulously shaped, nurtured, and prepared for something far greater than your mind can comprehend. These times of aloneness are not signs of rejection but divine opportunities for reflection, growth, and transformation. When we find ourselves alone, we are given the rare gift of uninterrupted introspection, a space where we can peel back the layers of who we are and confront the depths of our hearts. In this quiet, unadorned place, we can begin to understand ourselves more fully, discover what truly matters, and cultivate an inner strength that has the potential to withstand anything life may throw at us. Solitude, rather than being a void, becomes a fertile ground where our faith deepens, our resilience strengthens, and our hearts become more attuned to the divine whispers that guide us toward our destiny. Think about the great figures who have altered the course of history. Those who led nations, pioneered revolutions, or sparked spiritual awakenings. Many of them walked solitary paths before they were thrust into the world's stage. They, too, experienced the agonizing stillness of being alone, yet in that solitude, they were forged. God, in His boundless wisdom, knows that the trials that come in solitude are the ones that define us the most. It is not always in the busy crowds or the moments of great external acclaim that we are most transformed, but in the moments of utter quiet, when we are left face to face with ourselves and with God. In these vulnerable, often painful times of isolation, God is drawing near to us, exposing our weaknesses, strengthening our faith, and preparing us for a divine purpose we may not yet fully understand. So, if you find yourself surrounded by silence, with no one to lean on, take a moment to look inward. Know that God is actively working in the quiet places of your soul, doing something remarkable in you that may not be visible to the outside world. Trust that amid your solitude, He is molding you into the person He needs you to be, building you up for a future you cannot yet see but that He has perfectly orchestrated. In the absence of company, we are often called to discover the most profound truths about ourselves and our Creator. It is in these times that our souls can stretch, grow, and find the deepest connection to God and the purpose He has prepared for us. Loneliness, though painful and uncomfortable, is not a sign of abandonment but a sacred space of transformation. God's hand works most powerfully in these quiet, unseen moments, preparing us for something of great significance. It is often after seasons of loneliness that the most powerful breakthroughs happen, when we step into the world fully ready to answer a higher calling, one that will impact not just our lives but the lives of many around us. Trust in the perfect timing of God, even when the reasons for your isolation remain unclear. Understand that the loneliness you may feel is not an accident. It is a necessary part of a plan so vast and so beautiful that it surpasses our human understanding. In the absence of distractions and noise, we are led back to ourselves, to the raw truth of who we are. In these sacred moments of silence, we find the clarity to hear God's voice, to recognize His will, and to know the path He is leading us on. Solitude forces us to lean not on the crutches of others but on the strength that lies deep within us, and ultimately, on God's unwavering presence. This is when our faith is tested, and when we trust in Him, we find a foundation so solid, so unshakable, that no storm can move us. Rather than lamenting the absence of others, we should embrace this sacred space with hope, knowing that God is doing something mighty within us. It is in our loneliest moments that we are often being prepared for something monumental. A task, a calling, or a transformation that will change not only our lives but the world around us. Solitude, in its truest form, is one of the rarest and most valuable gifts we can receive, yet it is often misunderstood and overlooked in a world constantly clamoring for noise and companionship. In a society that thrives on external validation and endless distractions, solitude offers us something far deeper, a chance for an intimate and personal journey within, where our hearts can be reshaped, our minds renewed, and our spirits set ablaze with purpose. Far from being an empty absence, solitude is the fertile ground where the soul grows, where true transformation begins, and where we are prepared to step into the fullness of our divine calling. In the stillness of solitude, we are given the rare and sacred space to truly hear the murmurs of our souls, to listen for the voice of something greater, something eternal, that calls to us from the depths of our being. Far from the noise of the world and the incessant hum of others' expectations, we are afforded the freedom to confront our rawest fears, our deepest struggles, and our truest selves. Here, in the quiet void where no one else's voice seeks to define us, we are forced to face the naked truth of our existence, unveiled, unfiltered, and undistracted by the external affirmations we often crave. It is here, in this vulnerability, that we begin the painful yet profoundly transformative journey of self-discovery. When no one else is present to offer their counsel, their approval, or their judgments, we come face to face with the full force of our humanity. A person who never spends time alone, who never steps away from the endless chatter and clamor of others, is like a leaf caught in the wind, forever moved by external forces but never truly rooted in their own identity. They are shaped by the reflections of those around them, never knowing who they truly are when no one else is watching. Solitude, however, strips away these reflections, allowing us to stand before ourselves, raw and unadorned, and discover who we truly are at our core. It is in the stillness of these solitary moments that we uncover the deepest aspects of our being. Not because we have been molded by the opinions of others, but because we have dared to confront the essence of our soul, no longer hiding behind the facade of societal expectations. In this sacred space, we discover not only who we are, but who we are meant to become. The process of growth in solitude is neither immediate nor easy. It is often slow, like the patient, unyielding rise of a seed through the dark soil, reaching for the light. This growth does not come from the loud applause of a crowd or the swift affirmation of others, but from the quiet, unseen spaces where we wrestle with our hearts and minds. Without solitude, we would never know the depth of this inner transformation. The greatest changes in our lives are often the quietest, nurtured in hidden corners where we allow ourselves to be vulnerable, to change, and to grow without fear of judgment or the need for recognition. These are the moments of true self-reckoning, the moments when we are most aligned with our truest, unshakable selves. Solitude also provides the essential space for reflection, allowing us to reflect on the lessons of the past, to deeply examine our own experiences, and to discern the wisdom that is often lost in the noise and busyness of everyday life. In these quiet, sacred moments, we come to understand the depths of our failures, and through grace, we begin to find the strength to rise above them. It is in these profound moments of reflection that we come face to face with our weaknesses, acknowledge them without shame, and begin to cultivate the courage to move past them, seeking the growth that only comes from facing our humanity. But solitude is not merely the absence of people. It is, in truth, the presence of possibility. It is in these moments of stillness that we come to a deeper understanding of our faith and ourselves. In solitude, we learn to trust not just in our understanding, but in the quiet, ever-present companionship of God. We discover that He is never truly absent, even in the moments when the world feels empty and barren. It is often in the silence of solitude that we draw closest to Him, learning that His strength is perfected in our weakness. When we are stripped of every external distraction, we come to realize that we are not as alone as we feel, that even in our solitude, we are never forsaken. For those brave enough to embrace solitude, it becomes not a punishment, but a crucible in which our most profound growth takes place. It is here, in the quiet isolation, that we shed our old selves, confront our inner battles, and emerge, scarred but renewed, ready to embrace the person we were always meant to be. In solitude, we are not simply abandoned, but rather, we are presented with the opportunity to discover the boundless potential that lies within us. It is not a time to despair, but a time to transform, to wrestle with our fears, our regrets, and our doubts, and in the end, emerge stronger, wiser, and more attuned to the deepest calling of our souls. In these barren places, we also encounter the raw beauty of our vulnerability. Here, in the absence of human companionship, we confront our deepest fears, the ones we often hide from even ourselves. In solitude, we meet the truth of who we are, sometimes painful, sometimes uncomfortable, but always liberating. We cannot hide from the uncomfortable questions that arise. Who are we without the validation of others? What do we truly need when there is no one else around to fulfill those needs? It is in these moments of painful honesty that we begin to transform. Not into someone new, but into the most authentic version of ourselves. Loneliness, then, is not the cruel punishment we so often perceive it to be. It is, in fact, one of the most powerful forces of transformation. It strips us of our illusions, the illusions of self-sufficiency, of the need for validation, and forces us to confront the truth about our own identity. It is in these moments of solitude that we discover the quiet but immeasurable strength that lies within us, a strength that is not dependent on the approval of others, but on the silent, unwavering presence of God. It is in loneliness that we come to understand what truly matters. Not the number of friends we have, or the applause we receive, but the eternal worth that lies within us, unshakable and unchanging. This transformation, however, is not without its cost. Loneliness is not easy. It is uncomfortable, even agonizing at times. But it is precisely in that discomfort that we are allowed to grow in ways we never could have amid constant noise and distractions. In loneliness, we are forced to dig deep within ourselves, to find the courage to endure, to trust, and to have faith that we are never truly alone. It is in these quiet moments, when we feel most forsaken, that we discover the deepest reservoirs of strength, the unshakable hope that sustains us even when the world seems to be falling apart around us. Loneliness is the fire that refines us, the hammer that shapes us into something far greater than we could ever become in the absence of struggle. It is the necessary crucible through which we are forged, purified, and transformed. In the end, we emerge from the silence of solitude not as we once were, but as something entirely new, a more complete, more authentic version of ourselves, prepared for the greater things that lie ahead. And it is through the alchemy of loneliness that we are made ready to embrace the fullness of life, in all its beauty, its pain, and its boundless possibility. There are moments in life when we feel the undeniable stirring within us as if we are standing at the very precipice of something immense, something transformative. It's as if the universe itself is beckoning us toward greatness, yet, inexplicably, we are held back. We are confined to a quiet, shadowed space, far removed from the recognition or the applause of others. During these times, we may feel as though the world is racing ahead without us, that opportunities are slipping through our hands like sand, and that we are being left behind in the wake of a destiny that seems forever out of reach. We may even wonder if we have been forgotten, if our waiting is in vain, and if we are merely destined to drift in obscurity, out of step with the rhythm of life. But there is a deeper, more profound truth hidden in these moments. Truths that we often fail to see in insider longing. The silence that surrounds us, the stillness that feels so heavy, is far from meaningless. It is not a pause, nor a delay, but a time of preparation, of inner transformation. It is in these quiet, almost insignificant moments that we are being shaped, refined, and made ready for something much greater than we can understand at the time. The waiting, the solitude, the silence itself, it is not random, nor is it something to endure passively. It is a deliberate and necessary forging, a preparation that we might not comprehend until we step into our purpose and look back in awe. Just as a master sculptor chisels away at a block of marble, revealing the beauty hidden within, so too is the divine hand at work, quietly and purposefully carving away at the layers of our lives. We are not thrust into greatness overnight, nor do we recognize the depth of our transformation as it happens. The process is slow, often silent, and sometimes painful, but it is the very process that molds us into the people we are meant to become. This is not a time for loud actions or external validation. Rather, it is a time of quiet refining, a shaping that takes place deep within, in the hidden chambers of our soul. If you are still watching this video, and find these lessons useful, please comment number 1 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. Consider the heroes, the visionaries, the saints of history. They did not simply appear, fully formed, ready to lead and inspire. No, they were prepared in the quietest of places, often unnoticed, often unseen, where their souls were gently but powerfully shaped into vessels capable of carrying the weight of greatness. It is in the silence, in the solitude, that they were given the strength, wisdom, and fortitude necessary for their future calling. In those hidden spaces, they were forged into the people they needed to be, each trial, and each quiet moment adding another layer of resilience, understanding, and strength to their character. This process of preparation is not always comfortable. At times, it feels agonizing, as if we are being stretched beyond our capacity to endure. But just as a seed must be buried in the dark soil, unseen by the world, before it can grow into something magnificent, so too must we often be hidden away, out of sight, before we can fully emerge. It is in these unseen places that our strength is built, where our inner resources are deepened, and where we gather the fortitude necessary to bear the weight of the calling that awaits us. Without this quiet preparation, without the solitary moments of reflection, prayer, and inner growth, we would lack the roots to endure the inevitable storms of life. And so, though it may feel as though we are forgotten, as though we are in a constant state of waiting, the truth is far more comforting. We are not being neglected. We are being loved and shaped. The silence is not abandonment, but a tender and intentional preparation for something far greater than we can imagine. The divine knows what lies ahead, and he understands the depth of what we must become to carry out the purpose we were born for. So, even in moments when we feel as though we are at a standstill, when it seems like the world is moving on without us, know that we are being equipped in ways that will only make sense when we look back from the other side of our journey. What may appear to be barren, desolate ground is, in reality, the fertile soil in which the seeds of our future are being sown. The waiting, the quiet, the times when we feel most alone, these are not wasted moments. They are the very moments when the divine is working the hardest within us, laying the foundation for what is to come. The silence, though it may feel isolating, is the crucible in which our character is forged, our resilience tested, and our wisdom cultivated. When the time comes for us to step into the roles we were meant to play, we will realize that the waiting was not wasted. It was in those quiet moments of solitude that we became who we needed to be, strong, wise, and ready to rise to the challenge. The preparation was never about the task itself. It was about the strength and faith we would need to carry it out. And when we stand at the summit of our calling, we will know, in the deepest part of our soul, that every silent moment of waiting was, in truth, the greatest gift we could have received. The quiet moments, though they may have felt insignificant at the time, were the sacred soil from which everything else grew. In those still, silent stretches, those times when the world seemed to move around you while you were left waiting, do not let despair take root in your heart. Do not allow yourself to believe that your life is stagnant or that you are being overlooked. Understand this. You are being quietly, deliberately prepared. The moments of stillness are not wasted. They are shaping you, molding you into something extraordinary. Something that will, in time, emerge with radiant clarity for the world to see. Trust in this, even when it feels impossible to comprehend. You may not see it now, but the very silence and waiting you endure are the hidden threads that will ultimately weave the tapestry of your calling. When the moment finally arrives, when the fullness of your purpose is revealed, you will look back on those quiet days with a newfound understanding. You will realize, with a heart full of gratitude, that those were the moments that truly made all the difference. The lessons learned in patience, in trust, in waiting, are the ones that will carry you through every trial that lies ahead. There are few life lessons more humbling and challenging than learning to trust in God's timing. Our human nature, burdened with impatience and longing, pushes us to act, to rush, to force the doors open for the desires of our hearts. We crave answers, we yearn for resolution, for the fulfillment of our dreams, and we want it now, yesterday, even. The world screams at us to be relentless, to make things happen, and to seize every opportunity without hesitation. It tells us that success and happiness are reserved for those who act decisively and rush forward without looking back. Yet, in the quiet and profound wisdom of God, there is a truth that defies all of this, a truth that whispers into our souls. Timing is everything, and His timing is always perfect. When our hearts burn with impatience, when we feel the weight of unfulfilled desire pressing down on us, it's easy to wonder if God has forgotten us. We may question whether He has lost track of our prayers, or if He simply doesn't understand the urgency of our needs. But it is in these very moments of doubt that we must remind ourselves that delays are not signs of neglect, they are signs of divine care. God's timing is not bound by the clock that governs our days. His understanding of time is not confined to the limits of our experience, our schedules, or our desires. While we anxiously watch the ticking hands of the clock, God sees the grand canvas of time, stretching from the past into the future, encompassing every possibility, every moment. He is not just preparing the world around us. He is preparing us in ways we cannot yet comprehend. Trusting in God's timing is surrendering to the understanding that He is not confined by our plans, our expectations, or our understanding. It is recognizing that it is in the very waiting, in the very stillness, that we are often shaped the most. When it seems as though nothing is happening, when we feel as though we are trapped in a state of suspended animation, God is quietly at work within us. These are the moments when He is refining us, shaping our character, strengthening our resilience, and deepening our faith. In the silence of the wait, God works in the depths of our hearts, teaching us patience, endurance, and trust. He is teaching us to trust not in our ability to control time, but in His perfect wisdom. And we must remember this: the waiting is never in vain. Just because we cannot see the purpose at the moment does not mean that the purpose does not exist. Imagine a farmer who plants a seed into the earth. He does not sit idle, but he knows with unwavering confidence that the harvest will come in its own time, even if it takes months for the seed to grow into something tangible. So too does God work in our lives. He has planted His plan within us, a plan that is beyond our full understanding. And just as the seed is nurtured beneath the soil, unseen, before it can burst into bloom, God is causing His plan to grow within us, preparing us for what is yet to come. It is not a question of if His plan will come to fruition, but when. And this when is so much more important than we may ever realize. Often, in our desire to rush forward, to leap into what we believe is our future, we forget that God knows exactly what we need, and when we need it. If we were to receive what we long for too soon, we may not have the strength to carry it, the wisdom to use it, or the heart to cherish it. The waiting, the delay, the silent years are not punishments, they are part of the preparation. God, in His boundless love, withholds not because He is indifferent to our desires, but because He understands what is truly best for us. His timing, though difficult and often frustrating, is always for our ultimate good. Sometimes, the waiting is an invitation to learn something deeper about who we are and who He is. In the silence of the wait, we come to the profound realization that we cannot force life to bend to our will. We cannot twist God's hand to align with our desires. This is the trust He asks of us, not blind obedience, but the trust of a child who knows deep in their heart that the parent's hand is always wise, always good, even when the path is not clear. God's timing does not always align with our expectations. We often envision the perfect moment as one of comfort, convenience, and clarity. But in the mystery of His timing, there is a deeper, more nuanced truth at work. A truth that shapes us in ways we never expected and equips us for a future we could never have imagined. It may arrive in the form of an unexpected challenge, a trial we never foresaw, or a call that shakes us to our core. And yet, when it does come, no matter how it manifests, we will recognize that it is exactly what we needed, exactly when we needed it. It won't be the fulfillment of our carefully crafted plans or our timelines, but it will be the unfolding of something far greater, the fulfillment of God's infinitely wiser and more profound plan for our lives. This is where the depth of faith comes in, trusting that when the time is right, God will act. Our role is not to push ahead in haste, but to wait with patient faith, knowing that the waiting itself is part of His divine work in our hearts. And when the moment finally arrives, whether it's a year from now, 5 years, or even a lifetime, we will see that it was, without question, the perfect time. The moments of waiting, those agonizing stretches when we doubted, when we wondered if we were forgotten or if we had been passed over, will all be revealed for what they truly were. Part of a much grander, more beautiful story. A story written in the eternal wisdom of God, whose perspective transcends time and sees the threads of our lives woven together in ways we could never have imagined. In the end, trusting in God's timing is not about enduring an endless wait. It's about believing that He is with us in every single moment of it. We are not forgotten. We are being prepared in silence. And when the appointed time comes, we will know, without a shadow of a doubt, that it was not only the right time, it was the only time that could have been. Few longings are as deeply human as the quest for self-discovery, the deep, aching desire to understand who we are at our very core. From the first stirrings of thought, we are confronted with the question, who am I? This search for our identity shapes much of our lives, and yet, for all the searching, we often find that the more we strive to find ourselves, the more elusive we become. We chase after new experiences, new roles, and new dreams, hoping that in them, we will find the person we are meant to be. But this relentless pursuit can often lead us down twisting, confusing paths, where we lose sight of our true selves. The more we attempt to define ourselves by external markers, by our achievements, our relationships, or even our thoughts, the less clear our identity becomes. In truth, the journey towards self-discovery cannot be fully mapped out, nor can it be controlled by our own will. It is a journey that reveals itself only when we stop searching so desperately for what is outward and instead turn inward into silence. It is in that stillness, when we stop striving to define ourselves by what we do or how others see us, that the truth begins to emerge. We begin to realize that our identity is not bound to the roles we play or the successes we've accumulated. It is something far deeper, something rooted in the very essence of who we are. This is where the divine connection becomes paramount. For the truth of who we are is intertwined with the truth of who God is. We are not simply random assortments of desires, ambitions, and experiences. We are beings crafted in the image of a Creator, reflections of His glory. And it is only when we connect to the divine, when we come to know God intimately, that we are truly able to see ourselves. The more we come to know Him, the more we listen to the whispers of His love and wisdom, the more we come to know who we are meant to be. Through Him, we discover our true selves, not as a distant, abstract idea, but as beings who are loved, cherished, and shaped by the hands of the Creator. It is in Him that we find our purpose, our identity, and our place in this vast, beautiful world. This divine connection is not something we can attain by sheer willpower, nor is it something that simply appears in our fast-paced, distracted lives. It's not about finding the right formula or unlocking some hidden secret. Instead, it's about surrender, opening ourselves to God's presence in our lives and learning to listen rather than speak. Amidst the noise and busyness of the world, it is so easy to forget that we are not the center of everything. Our understanding of who we are cannot come solely from our own experiences and reflections. While the world urges us to look inward, God calls us to look upward, to seek our identity, not in the fleeting things of this world, but in the eternal truth of His love. When we create space for this divine connection, when we quiet our hearts and allow God to speak, we begin to see ourselves in a new light. We realize that our worth is not tied to what we accomplish or how we are perceived by others. Our worth lies in the simple fact that we are deeply and unconditionally loved by a Creator who knows us better than we know ourselves. This love does not depend on our successes or failures, on our virtues or vices. It is the love of the One who made us and who knows the purpose for which we were created, whether we fully understand it or not. In quiet communion with God, we begin to see that our true selves are not defined by our accomplishments or traits, but by divine grace. We are not merely what we do or what we feel. We are what God says we are. And this profound realization comes only when we stop trying to define ourselves by external means and allow God to define us. For only in Him do we see ourselves. Through our connection to the divine, we begin to understand the fullness of our being. The deeper our connection to God grows, the clearer our understanding of who we are becomes. We were not made for the approval of others or the pursuit of personal gain. We were made for a relationship with the Creator, one that brings meaning, purpose, and peace. In this divine connection, we find not only our identity but also our deepest fulfillment. The search for self is not a solitary, inward-focused journey. It is one of communion with the One who made us, a communion that brings us closer to our truest selves. This journey of self-discovery is not a lonely path. It leads us outward, to a greater understanding of the world around us, to a deeper love for others, and ultimately to a fuller, richer relationship with the God who created us. Through Him, we come to know ourselves, and through that knowledge, we find our truest purpose. In finding that purpose, we are led to the life that God has always intended for us. To know ourselves, and to know ourselves in the light of God's love, is to understand our true purpose and place in the world. Our identity is not found in isolation, but in communion, with God, with others, and with the very essence of who we were created to be. There are moments in life when we face challenges so great, so overwhelming, that we feel we cannot bear them any longer. The world presses in from every side, and the weight of it all threatens to break us. It is in these moments, when every external source of support seems to fail or fade, that we are often forced to confront the true power of inner strength. Too often, we think of strength as something that can be measured, physical might or outward accomplishments, things that are visible and easily recognized. But true strength is far more subtle and profound than anything that can be seen. It is a strength that resides not in our muscles or material possessions, but in our hearts and spirits. At first glance, This kind of strength can seem elusive, almost intangible. It is not a force we can summon at will or a tool we can wield like a hammer or a shield. Rather, it is a quiet, unshakable core within us, a wellspring of endurance that only reveals itself when we are tested. It is a strength that does not arise from our efforts, but from something much deeper, a strength planted within us by the hand of a creator who knows our potential, even when we cannot see it ourselves. If you are still watching this video, and find these lessons useful, please comment number 2 below to let me know that you are still watching this video with me. And don't forget to subscribe to our YouTube channel. This inner strength is not something we typically choose to cultivate. In many ways, it is forged in the fires of hardship. We do not fully appreciate the depth of our resilience until we are pushed to the very edge of our endurance. We may feel we are at the end of our rope, that we have nothing more to give, and yet, when we surrender ourselves to what seems impossible, we discover that there is something within us that holds us together. It is a strength that does not come from the absence of weakness, but from the act of confronting weakness head-on without flinching. There is a temptation to see strength as invulnerability, to think that being strong means being impervious to suffering or pain. But true inner strength is not the absence of vulnerability. Instead, it is the courage to be vulnerable and still stand firm. It is the courage to endure, not despite our weaknesses, but because of them. For it is precisely in our weakest moments that we tap into a strength that is not our own, a strength sustained not by our willpower, but by the quiet, unseen grace of God. It is in our surrender, in our acceptance of our limitations, that we discover the truest form of strength. One might wonder, how can we cultivate such strength? The answer, I believe, lies in our willingness to face what is difficult, painful, and uncertain, and to do so without relying solely on our resources. It is the courage to step into the unknown and to keep moving forward even when the path is unclear. Inner strength is not the absence of fear or doubt, but the determination to keep moving despite them. It is the willingness to be shaped, to be molded by life's trials, rather than broken by them. And in this process of shaping, we begin to see the power of inner strength as something far greater than mere survival. It becomes a force of transformation. Just as the greatest works of art are often created under the most difficult of conditions, so too is our character honed in the furnace of hardship. The profound inner strength we gain through the storms of life is not merely the ability to endure, though that too is a remarkable feat, but rather the transformative power that enables us to become more fully who we were always meant to be. In moments of crushing adversity, when the weight of the world seems unbearable, we often come to a powerful revelation. What we once viewed as our greatest weaknesses, our deepest fears, our most paralyzing doubts, and our perceived limitations, are, in fact, the very things that can unlock the door to unimaginable strength. These fragile points, these moments where we feel most broken, become the places where divine grace can flow most freely, entering the cracks in our hearts, filling the empty spaces with a profound sense of peace, and expanding our capacity for courage in ways we never thought possible. It is within our vulnerability, in those moments when we feel completely powerless, that we begin to witness the incredible paradox of God's strength. His strength becomes perfect in the very places where we feel weakest, and it is through our willingness to lay ourselves bare before Him that we are made strong in ways we could have never anticipated. This sacred strength is not rooted in self-reliance, nor is it the absence of pain or hardship. Rather, true inner strength is a quiet, unshakable assurance that no matter the trials we face or the challenges that lie ahead, we are carried and sustained by something far greater than our fragile efforts. This strength runs deeper than anything the world can offer. It is a strength that dwells in the very depths of our souls, a strength that defies worldly measurements, only to be felt and understood in the stillness of our hearts, in the quiet and enduring presence of God's love. As we reflect on the strength we gain through our trials, I encourage you to pause and think about what you've learned from this message. In times of weakness, we are reminded that true strength comes not from what we can do on our own, but from the grace that flows when we open ourselves to vulnerability. So, what have you discovered about your strength through the challenges you've faced? What's one thing you've learned today that you will carry with you and begin practicing in your own life? Please share your thoughts with us in the comments below. I'd love to hear how this message has impacted you. If you enjoyed this video, don't forget to leave a comment, hit the like button, share it with your friends, and subscribe to our channel for more inspiring content. Together, let's continue growing and finding strength in the places we least expect.